Anne of Green Gables. Anne of Green Gables. #1 by L.M. Montgomery. The unexpected arrival. The sun was a warm golden orb on the horizon, casting a soft glow over the platform of the Bright River train station. Marilla Cuthbert, her eyes shaded by a wide-brimmed hat, surveyed the crowd expectantly, while Matthew fidgeted beside her, his eyes shining with a rare spark of anticipation. They had decided to adopt a boy, a companion and helper for Matthew as he grew older. Marilla recalled their conversation with Mrs. Alexander Spencer, who had suggested they adopt from the orphan asylum in Hopeton, Nova Scotia. "A boy would be more useful to you than a girl," Marilla had insisted, thinking of the physical labor on the farm. As the train hissed to a stop, the passengers began to disembark. Among them was a slender, scrawny girl with fiery red hair that fell in loose curls about her pale face. Her eyes, vivid with anticipation, shone like twin stars, and her mouth was tremulous with hope. She approached them with an eager step, her voice tinged with a peculiar accent. "Are you Mr. Matthew Cuthbert of Green Gables?" she asked, her voice carrying a note of suppressed eagerness. "I'm Anne Shirley, and I'm so grateful you've adopted me." Matthew, taken aback, could only nod, while Marilla's practical nature battled with surprise. "There must be some mistake," she said firmly. "We sent for a boy." Anne's face fell, and her lips quivered as if she were about to cry. "But I'm here now," she pleaded. "Can't I stay?" Matthew's heart went out to the girl, and he found himself hoping she could stay. As they made their way back to Green Gables, the jolly rumble of the bridge and the scent of lilacs filled the air. Anne's eyes darted eagerly from one farmstead to another, her voice tumbling out in a joyful torrent as she described the beauty of Avonlea. Marilla listened, her initial annoyance giving way to curiosity about this talkative girl. As they turned into the lane leading to Green Gables, Anne's eyes widened at the sight of the cherry blossoms in the orchard. "Oh, it's so lovely," she exclaimed, her voice filled with wonder. "I've never seen such beauty." Marilla's stern expression softened as she watched Anne's face light up, and she felt a twinge of something unfamiliar, a spark of joy that this unexpected arrival had brought to their quiet lives. Matthew, meanwhile, slipped away to the barn, deep in thought. He couldn't shake the feeling that Anne was someone special, a kindred spirit who would change their lives forever. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over Green Gables, Marilla called Anne in for supper. The girl's chatter died down as she took in the cozy kitchen, her eyes sparkling with hope. Though the evening was filled with uncertainty, one thing was clear. Anne Shirley, with her vivid imagination and eager heart, had brought a spark of life to Green Gables, and nothing would ever be the same again. Initial rejection. Marilla's face was a picture of disappointment as she gazed at the small, talkative girl standing before her. This was not what she had expected. She had asked for a boy to help with the farm work, not a chattering, imaginative child like Anne. "So you're Anne Shirley," Marilla said, her voice firm but not unkind. "Yes, ma'am," Anne replied. "I'm so glad to be here. I've never seen such a beautiful place in my life." Marilla's expression softened slightly at Anne's words, but she quickly regained her composure. "Well, we'll see about that later. First, I need to ask you some questions. What can you tell me about your past?" Anne launched into a long, rambling story about her life in the asylum and her various caregivers. Marilla listened intently, her pity for the child growing with every word. But as Anne continued to talk, Marilla's practical side began to reassert itself. "I see," Marilla said when Anne finally paused for breath. "Well, Anne, I'm afraid there's been a mistake. We asked for a boy to help us with the farm work." Anne's face fell, and Marilla felt a pang of guilt, but she pushed on, determined to make the right decision. "I'm afraid we can't keep you," Marilla said gently. "We'll have to send you back to the asylum." Matthew, who had been watching the exchange from the sidelines, interjected with a hint of warmth in his voice. "Marilla, perhaps we could give her a chance. She's had a hard life, and wouldn't be right to send her away without giving her an opportunity to show what she can do. Marilla hesitated, torn between her sense of duty and the unexpected affection she felt for the girl. Anne, sensing a shift in Marilla's resolve, wiped her tears and looked up with a hopeful expression. "Please, Miss Marilla, I will work very hard. I can learn to do all sorts of things. I won't be any trouble, I promise," Anne pleaded. Marilla sighed, the decision weighing heavily on her. She glanced at Matthew, whose kind eyes were fixed on Anne, and then back at the girl, whose earnestness was palpable. Finally, Marilla nodded slowly. "All right, Anne. We'll give you a trial period. But you must understand, if it doesn't work out, you'll have to go back." Anne's face lit up with a grateful smile, and she nodded eagerly. "Thank you, Miss Marilla, Mr. Matthew. You won't regret this, I promise." As they settled down for supper, the atmosphere at Green Gables subtly changed. The presence of Anne, with her boundless enthusiasm and vivid imagination, brought a new energy to the old farmhouse. And though Marilla would never admit it, she found herself looking. A glimmer of hope. Marilla Cuthbert found herself reflecting on the recent turn of events. Anne's arrival at Green Gables had been unexpected, and her initial decision to send the girl back to the orphan asylum weighed heavily on her. Yet, as she observed Anne's interactions with Matthew and witnessed the girl's sheer delight in the beauty of their home, Marilla's resolve began to soften. Anne's enthusiasm was infectious. Her vivid descriptions of the cherry tree, the lush orchard, and the tranquil brook captivated Marilla. The girl's imagination seemed boundless, and her ability to find joy in the simplest of things was a stark contrast to Marilla's practical nature. "What's troubling you, Marilla?" Matthew inquired, noticing his sister's pensive mood. Marilla sighed, the image of Anne's hopeful face lingering in her mind. "I've been thinking about Anne," she admitted. "She's so different from what we expected, yet there's something about her that feels right for Green Gables." Matthew nodded, his kind eyes reflecting understanding. "She does have a way of growing on you," he agreed. "Perhaps we should consider letting her stay for a while, see how things go." The idea resonated with Marilla, and a sense of calm began to replace her earlier doubts. "Yes, let's give her a chance," she decided. "We'll see how she settles in. Anne has a way of making every corner of this place seem brighter, just by being herself. It's as if she's brought the beauty of nature right into our home with her stories and laughter. Let's give her the home she's been dreaming of, at least for a trial period. We might find that Green Gables is all the richer for having her." Matthew smiled, his heart warmed by the thought of Anne finding a place where she belonged. Marilla felt a gentle peace settle over her as she agreed, knowing that they were about to embark on an unexpected journey that might just fill their home with the love and laughter it had been missing. A change of heart. Marilla stood at the kitchen window, her hands buried in the sudsy water as she washed the dinner dishes. The sun was setting, casting a warm glow over Green Gables. Matthew shuffled in, leaning against the door frame. "She's a curious one, isn't she?" he said. Marilla sighed, drying her hands on her apron. "That she is. I never expected any of this." Matthew chuckled softly. "Life's full of surprises. She's got spirit, Marilla. And she's smart as a whip." "I know," Marilla admitted, a reluctant smile tugging at her lip. "She's different from what we thought we wanted, but maybe she's what we needed." Out in the garden, Anne's laughter floated through the open window, and Marilla felt something warm unfurl in her chest, a sense of completeness that Anne seemed to bring to their quiet home. Matthew's eyes softened. "She belongs here with us, and I reckon we belong with her too." Marilla nodded, her decision made. "All right." As the evening shadows grew longer, Marilla and Matthew watched Anne play in the garden, her laughter mingling with the rustling leaves. "She's brought life back to Green Gables," Marilla mused, a sense of peace settling over her. Matthew nodded in agreement, his gaze affectionate and proud. "She's more than we could have hoped for," he said. Together, they stood in silent appreciation, knowing that Anne was indeed home. Are you? Finding common ground. The morning sun cast a warm glow over Green Gables as Marilla Cuthbert set the breakfast table, her movements precise and methodical. Across the table, Anne Shirley sat, her eyes wide with wonder at the simple beauty of the morning. She chattered excitedly about the sunrise, comparing it to a splendid painting she had once seen in a book. Marilla handed Anne a small apron. "All right, let's get started on those chores. We've got a lot of work to do today." Anne's eyes sparkled as she tied the apron strings behind her back. As they worked together, Marilla began to notice the little things about Anne that made her more endearing. The way she carefully polished the silverware, her brow furrowed in concentration. The way she sang softly to herself as she swept the floor, her imagination running wild. By the end of the day, Marilla found herself feeling a sense of pride and satisfaction in Anne's accomplishments. Maybe, just maybe, would bring more joy to their quiet lives than they had initially thought. The turning point. In the dim light of the kitchen, Marilla sat with her hands folded tightly together. The house was quiet, save for the ticking of the clock and the occasional rustle of leaves outside. Matthew stepped into the kitchen, his face etched with concern. "Marilla, have you decided?" he asked gently. Marilla sighed. "She's not the boy we were expecting. How can she help us with the farm?" Matthew smiled softly. "She's a bright child, full of life and imagination. She's already brought so much joy into our lives." Marilla's gaze drifted to the window where the stars twinkled in the night sky. "She does have a way of making everything seem magical," she mused. Anne entered the room, her eyes wide and hopeful. "I know I'm not the boy you were expecting, and I can't do much about farm work." Anne's voice quivered. "But I can learn, and I can help with other things. I can read to you, help with the chores." Marilla looked at the girl, her resolve softening. "Anne, you've brought something to Green Gables that we didn't know was missing. It's like you brought spring into the house with all your stories and your laughter." Matthew nodded in agreement. "And we've been thinking, maybe you could stay here with us if you'd like that." Anne's face lit up. "Oh, Marilla, Matthew, would you really let me stay? I'll try to do everything right." Marilla stood up and walked over to Anne, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Yes, Anne, we want you to stay. You're part of Green Gables now." And so in the soft glow of the kitchen, a new chapter began for Anne, Marilla, and Matthew. A chapter filled with the promise of many bright days to come at Green Gables, the place Anne now called home. A new home. The evening sun cast a warm glow through the kitchen windows, illuminating the simple wooden furniture and basic cooking utensils that lined the walls. Marilla and Matthew sat at the table, their faces set with determination as they discussed Anne's fate. The decision had been made, though it was clear that Marilla still harbored some doubts. "It's settled then. We'll keep her," Marilla said, her voice firm yet tinged with a hint of uncertainty. "I'll write to Mrs. Spencer today and let her know of our decision." Her eyes narrowed slightly as she gazed at Matthew, as if daring him to disagree. Matthew, his eyes sparkling with a mixture of excitement and relief, nodded in agreement. "I'll go into town tomorrow and speak with the lawyer. We'll make it official, Marilla. And we'll have a proper home here with us." A small smile played on his lips, revealing a sense of wonder at the unexpected turn of events. When Marilla informed Anne of their decision, the young girl's face lit up like a lantern. Her eyes shone with unshed tears as she exclaimed, "Oh, Marilla, you mean I get to stay? I'll truly be yours? Oh, I'll try so hard to be good and not cause any trouble. Please tell me what I should call you. I want to do everything right. Marilla's heart softened at Anne's earnestness, her stern expression relaxing into a gentle smile. You can call me Marilla, dear, and we know you'll do your best to be a good girl. We're all very happy to have you here. Anne beamed, her freckled face aglow with joy. She bounced up and down in her seat, her enthusiasm infectious. Thank you, Marilla. I promise to work hard and make you proud. Green Gables already feels like home, and I haven't even been here that long. As the days turned into weeks, Anne flourished under the loving care of Marilla and Matthew. She would often spend hours daydreaming about her future life at Green Gables, imagining herself helping Marilla with the chores, playing with Matthew in the fields, and making friends with the children from nearby farms. Her vivid imagination ran wild with possibilities, filling her heart with excitement and anticipation. Marilla began to instruct Anne in religious matters, patiently guiding her through the rituals and teachings that had been absent from her childhood. Though Anne's lack of knowledge sometimes led to amusing misunderstandings, her willingness to learn was evident. She listened intently to Marilla's explanations, her eyes wide with curiosity and a desire to understand the world that Marilla and Matthew held dear. In these quiet moments, the bonds of family were woven tightly, as Anne found not just a place to stay, but a home where she was cherished. Settling in. Anne's first days at Green Gables were a whirlwind of emotions and new experiences. She eagerly tackled her chores each morning, her thoughts often drifting to the lush fields and sparkling waters surrounding her new home. At school, Anne found a kindred spirit in Diana, who listened eagerly to Anne's stories about her imaginary friends. Their friendship blossomed as they shared secrets and dreams under the canopy of trees during recess. Despite the challenges, Anne remained determined to improve herself. She took Marilla's advice to heart, vowing to rein in her imagination and be more concise in her writing. As she settled into her new life, Anne continued to find joy in the simplest of things. She loved helping Marilla with the household chores and learning new skills, like how to make perfect bread and jam tarts. And although she still had moments of vivid imagination, Anne was gradually learning to distinguish between fantasy and reality.